This is a French baguette, except it isn't. If you tried to bake this exact bread in Paris, a traditional French baker would probably scream at you, because hidden inside this dough is a secret ingredient that completely saved it from tropical ruin. This is the story of how Vietnam took the ultimate symbol of European luxury, completely broke all its rules, and engineered it into the greatest street food sandwich on planet Earth. And it all started with a culinary rebellion in a tiny Saigon alleyway. To understand the Banh Mi, we have to travel back to the late 1800s. French imperial forces had just seized control of Vietnam, establishing French Indochina. And when the French arrived, they wanted the comforts of home. That meant luxury imports, expensive wine, cheese, liver pâté, European butter, and, of course, the iconic wheat baguette. At the time, local Vietnamese people didn't call it a sandwich. They called the bread bang thai, which literally translates to Western cake or Western bread. And for decades, it remained strictly out of reach for ordinary citizens. Why? Because wheat cannot grow in Vietnam's hot, humid tropical climate. Every single grain of wheat flour had to be shipped across oceans from Europe. This made bread incredibly expensive. Furthermore, it wasn't eaten on the go. If you were a wealthy French official in Saigon, you sat at a cafe and ate this meal as a platter. The baguette was served on a plate alongside cold cuts and butter, eaten elegantly with a knife and fork. For the local Vietnamese population, bang thai was a symbol of colonial exclusion, a luxury they could see, but rarely taste. But empires eventually fade, and disruptions change everything. When World War I broke out, shipping lanes were cut off. Huge supplies of French goods became trapped in warehouses in Vietnam, flooding the local markets at suddenly affordable prices. Vietnamese locals finally got their hands on wheat flour, and they began learning how to bake. But they didn't just copy the French. They completely re-engineered the recipe. Vietnamese bakers realized that traditional, dense French baguettes got heavy and chewy when exposed to tropical humidity. So, they pulled off a brilliant culinary rebellion. Instead of baking dense loaves, they re-engineered the dough using high-gluten flour and adding dough improvers to trap extra air. They then baked them in high-moisture, steam-filled ovens. This radical adjustment changed everything. The steam created an interior as fluffy as a cloud, and an exterior crust so paper-thin and crisp that it practically shattered upon impact. Locals stopped calling it bang thai. It was no longer Western bread. It was now banh mi, literally, wheat bread. It belonged to Vietnam now. By the 1950s, French rule had ended, but the evolution of the bread was just getting started. In 1954, following the partition of the country, over 1 million refugees moved from North Vietnam to the south, flooding into the bustling city of Saigon. Among them were a couple named Mr. and Mrs. Le. In 1958, they opened a tiny, humble food stall in Saigon's District 3 called Bánh Mì Hoa Ma. And it was right here that the modern sandwich was officially born. Before the Le family, people were still eating bread and meat separately. But Saigon was transforming into a fast-paced, modern city filled with students, laborers, and commuters who didn't have time to sit down with a knife and fork. So, the Le family had a lightning bolt realization. They sliced the modified baguette right down the middle and stuffed the ingredients directly inside. They also realized that heavy French dairy butter spoiled instantly in the Saigon heat, so they swapped it for a stable, rich mayonnaise made from egg yolks and oil. To cut through the heavy, fatty taste of liver pâté and pork, they added a uniquely Vietnamese counterpunch, a bright, crunchy handful of pickled daikon and carrots, crisp cucumber spears, fresh cilantro, and a fiery kick of local chiles. But the ultimate glue holding this entire masterpiece together was a splash of savory Maggi seasoning sauce, yet another European import, completely localized to bind the ingredients with a deep, umami richness. It was fast. It was affordable. It was perfectly balanced. It was a complete meal you could hold in one hand while riding a scooter. As the sandwich spread across the country, it adapted to the distinct palates of Vietnam's different regions, creating three main styles that you can still taste today. If you travel to the north, to Hanoi, you will find the minimalist version. Hanoians prefer a simpler, more traditional sandwich. It focuses heavily on the quality of the warm meats, featuring a generous smear of earthy liver pâté and a sprinkle of black pepper, using very few vegetables or herbs. In central Vietnam, particularly in the ancient town of Hoi An, the bánh mì becomes intensely vibrant and herbal. Here, they use deep, complex chicken liver pâté and a generous drizzle of a spicy, sweet local chili sauce that drenches the bread from the inside out. And down south, in Saigon, you get the ultimate everything style. It is an absolute mountain of food stuffed to the brim, with 3 or 4 types of Vietnamese cold cuts, grilled pork, unctuous pork floss, a mountain of fresh herbs, and enough chiles to make you sweat. So, if you had to choose right now, which style are you ordering first? The minimalist Hanoi, the spicy Hoi An, or the heavy-hitting Saigon?